So how long have you run this place for?
I've been here for 13 years in March, and we moved here as a family, and I was very interested in having my family learn the foundations of having a farm.
And what made you want to have a farm and horses?
Well, I wanted my children to know the fundamentals of horsemanship, because it was something that made my heart sing when I was a little girl. And I also had a passion for what many people see in horses and the connection they have with human beings.
And when you retire, what do you want to do?
When I retire, I want to share all that I've learned at this farm and from horses and from my life with others.
And was this your dream job that you really wanted to do, or did you want to do something else?
It was my dream. It was my dream, and it's happening. It's not always easy, and not always predictable, but it was 100% my dream.
Can you talk about it?
The nonprofit. So we have a sister nonprofit here. There's the Nokota Horse Conservancy, which was founded years ago by my friends Frank and Leo Kuntz, and it is still in place to offer education and housing for a herd of about 200 in North Dakota in their natural lands. And we have a sister nonprofit here that Robin and I are both board members of, called the Nokota Preserve, Chester Springs. And our mission is to educate people of the magical qualities of this breed, the Nokota horse, and establish their unbelievable magic inside the therapeutic industry.
So you like the therapeutic industry?
I do. I think it has an amazing breadth and reaches many, and I think we're only at the beginning of it, of what we can do with horses and people.
Tell me about the history of the horses.
Tell me about the history of the horses.
I think you can speak to it better than I can, only because you've been a part of it longer and you've been so intimately involved in the lives of both Leo and Frank. And I mean, we do believe the horses, and Dr. Castle McLaughlin certainly has done ethnographic work to trace them back to Sitting Bull's ponies. And which in the Badlands of North Dakota, which now would be the Theodore Roosevelt Park. And then, when you start going forward in time, then there was the action of taking some of them out of the park. And that's where Frank and Leo at some point got involved, and you knew them, so I feel like you best to talk about that. They were wonderful cowboys.
Yeah.
And veterans, Vietnam veterans.
Yes, and we're born and raised in North Dakota, and we're familiar with the horses from being part of a horse family. They had a farm, and they raised ponies for use in Medora Park. I guess they used them for carts and trained them for other different categories of horsemanship than we're familiar with on the East Coast. But they were instrumental in kind of giving them a name as a breed and separating them from regular wild horses, and perhaps like the BLM and the Mustang of the West. So what our understanding is, what Robin said, is that these horses share a huge connection with the Lakota people from from North America, and they were a horse-circled nation. So the center of their nation was the horse, and every story, every bit of history has the horse at its center, and particularly what we're seeing in front of us, which is the Nokota horse. These horses roamed naturally in the Badlands and in the southern region of Canada, and were somewhat inadvertently, through lots of historical change, battles, confiscation, being chased by helicopters, being used as an experiment for Ganacon within the park, they have been survivors. And Frank and Leo, who returned back from war looking for, a new life and a new direction, were ultimately trying to build a better racehorse, I think. And they were involved in the Great American Horse Race out there, and so they were invested in finding horses that had better bone, better endurance, more heart is what we say in the horse world, and their idea was to cross the Nokota horses that lived quite naturally in more of a feral environment with the Nokota. So they wanted to cross the Nokota horse with, say, the thoroughbred, which was having lots of hoof issues, breaking down, emotional instability, all kinds of things. And they thought that they might build a horse with more endurance and more character. And so they started pulling these horses out of Theodore Roosevelt National Park for that purpose, and started to recognize them as some of the lost horses from Sitting Bull's herd, which was something that they suspected and is still discussed today. So they created their own herd by going to auctions and pulling out lead stallions, and sort of this incredible process, and really did the unimaginable in feeding horses in some of the most difficult climates, under the most difficult circumstances financially, and ultimately formed the Nokota Horse Conservancy as a long-term protection for the herd that they were creating. They ultimately bred the horses, and I think they had probably about 300 of them, give or take. And ultimately, the Conservancy has a herd currently of maybe 110 horses on private lands that are very minimally managed from an intervention standpoint, but very lovingly maintained. And then Frank has a herd of about 200 as well. There are horses in France that are highly celebrated, Germany. I think they've made their way to Sweden, and everywhere the horse has reestablished itself, people fall in love. We consider them the Labrador retrievers of the horse world. They are very naturally curious, have a very high emotional intelligence, and a high play drive, which is what we say are all the makings for, a healthy mind. And so it's no wonder that I found them to be so appropriate for use in the therapeutic industry. So,
Thank you.
or I would say the therapeutic arts.
Thank you very much both for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
No problem.
It's very lovely to meet you.
Very nice to meet
Well, I
you.
enjoyed meeting you, Raffi.